You wake one morning with a strange unease, as if the mirror you look into is not reflecting your face, but something larger, older, and infinitely more complex. You feel it in the pit of your stomach, in the quiet tension of your chest, in the unspoken questions that hover like shadows at the edge of your consciousness. Who am I? Why do I feel this way? Why do certain people, situations, or emotions trigger a response so deep it feels ancestral? You are not merely seeking identity. You are seeking essence, the hidden patterns that shape not only who you are, but how you navigate the world. Beneath your daily roles, behind the persona you present to friends, family, and strangers, lies a landscape older than memory, a psychic terrain mapped not by logic, but by archetypes, the eternal forms that Carl Jung described as the architecture of the human soul. These archetypes are not ideas. They are living currents, invisible yet powerful, shaping your impulses, dreams, and choices. Some are nurturing, some are destructive. Some are playful, others fearsome. Some you recognize immediately. Others you have met only in fleeting moments of anger, longing, or wonder. They are neither good nor evil, yet they wield influence over every dimension of your life. And though each human carries all 12 archetypes within, the question is not, do you have them? But which one leads your conscious life? Which one has taken the forefront in your patterns, your decisions, your desires? To answer is not to label, but to awaken, to recognize the hidden forces guiding your journey, and to reclaim power from what has unconsciously steered you for decades. This is where the journey begins, not with intellect, but with encounter. You feel the archetypes in your relationships, in your dreams, in the choices that seem inevitable, in the recurring challenges that life presents with uncanny precision. They are present in the moments you laugh too loudly, cry too deeply, rage too fiercely, or love too completely. Each archetype carries a gift and a shadow, a pulse of life and a source of limitation. To know them is to step into a kind of sacred self-awareness, to observe the patterns without judgment, to see the threads that have woven your psyche together, and to choose, consciously, how to engage with them moving forward. Before we dive deeper into each archetype, pause, breathe, feel the subtle stirring of recognition within you, the sense that something vast, unseen, and profoundly personal is about to unfold. If you are ready to explore, to awaken, to engage with the hidden forces shaping your life, like, share, and subscribe, not merely as spectators, but as fellow travelers, walking the same psychic terrain. There is power in shared exploration, strength in collective courage, and clarity in the communal acknowledgement that we are more than what the world sees. Chapter 1 begins not with the obvious, but with the foundation, the persona and the shadow, the twin archetypes that govern how we appear and what we hide. The persona is the mask you wear to navigate the world, polished, acceptable, and strategically shaped to elicit approval and avoid rejection. It is the first point of interaction, the social face you present, the role you perform. Yet beneath the persona lies the shadow, a complex reservoir of suppressed impulses, unacknowledged desires, hidden fears, and unexplored potential. The shadow is everything you have denied in yourself because it was inconvenient, socially unacceptable, or too frightening to confront. And yet, paradoxically, it is the source of creativity, vitality, and authenticity. Without the shadow, the persona becomes brittle, artificial, and incomplete. Without acknowledgement, the shadow grows restless, influencing behavior unconsciously, erupting in ways that feel mysterious, destructive, or compulsive. To understand yourself, you must first confront this dyad. The first exercise is mirror reflection. Stand before a mirror, not to examine your appearance, but to meet the totality of your being. Observe not only what is immediately visible, your expression, posture, and countenance, but also the reactions that arise: shame, pride, discomfort, defiance. These reactions are clues, the fingerprints of the shadow. Ask yourself, which parts of me am I hiding from the world? Which parts am I refusing to acknowledge, even to myself? Let the answers surface without judgment. The act of seeing is the first step toward integration. The persona also speaks, subtly guiding choices, desires, and behavior. It may tell you which careers, relationships, or lifestyles are acceptable. It may warn against risk, vulnerability, or authenticity. The challenge lies in discerning when the persona serves you and when it confines you. The shadow, conversely, stirs in the spaces the persona avoids. Perhaps it is anger you have never expressed, a dream you abandoned, a talent you dismissed, or a longing too unconventional to acknowledge. Recognizing these currents requires inner listening, a patient attention to the body, emotions, and recurring thoughts that carry the unspoken messages of your unconscious. The shadow communicates through impulses, dreams, fantasies, and projection onto others. To notice, without immediate judgment or suppression, is to enter the first threshold of self-awareness. Projection is the shadow's trickiest mechanism. You may recognize your unclaimed traits in others, feeling irritation, envy, or admiration with a potency that seems disproportionate. This is the shadow reflecting in the world, offering opportunities for recognition and integration. Here lies the second exercise: projection mapping. When you react strongly to another person, pause. Ask, which part of me am I seeing in them? Which qualities do I resist owning? Naming these traits and feeling them as your own begins the delicate alchemy of transformation. Anger becomes energy, fear becomes insight, envy becomes inspiration, desire becomes direction. The persona may resist, clinging to safety and approval, but the shadow insists. Integration requires courage. The interplay of persona and shadow forms the stage upon which the 12 archetypes emerge. Each archetype is both a pattern within the shadow and a potential expression of conscious life. They are not fixed. They shift, overlap, and interact. Yet, understanding your leading archetype, the one that shapes your conscious life, provides a map, a framework for awareness, growth, and authenticity. To recognize archetypal influence is not to constrain yourself, but to illuminate patterns, to reclaim agency, and to navigate life with intentionality rather than blind repetition. As Chapter 1 closes, you feel the subtle stirrings of recognition. Perhaps you glimpse anger you rarely express, desire you barely acknowledge, or resilience you have ignored. The persona feels thinner, less convincing, as the shadow stirs, ready to guide, to challenge, to energize. This is the threshold. You have begun to see the hidden architecture of your psyche, and you are ready to encounter the archetypes themselves, living forms within, each with gifts, shadows, and lessons, each waiting for recognition and conscious engagement. The journey moves forward, and the question lingers: which archetype leads your life? Which one shapes your choices, relationships, and destiny? Chapter 2 begins with a question that presses against your consciousness in quiet, insistent ways. Do you dare to live boldly, to step beyond the confines of safety, to confront the unknown that stirs both fear and longing within you? Here lie the archetypes of action, risk, and transformation, the hero, the outlaw, and the explorer, forces that push you into engagement with life in ways both exhilarating and perilous. They are the archetypes of courage, defiance, and curiosity, each carrying a luminous gift and a shadow that tests the integrity of your will. You feel them not as abstractions, but as impulses that surge in your body, tension in your chest, fire behind your eyes. The quiet yet insistent whisper that says, there is more for you beyond this moment. The hero is first, ancient and eternal, the archetype of bravery, resilience, and purpose. You encounter the hero whenever life calls for courage, in moments of crisis, moral choice, or personal trial. It demands that you risk, that you confront fears both tangible and invisible, that you rise to meet challenges not for applause, but for growth. The hero's shadow lurks in hubris, in compulsive striving, in over-identification with achievement. You may feel invincible yet disconnected, valorous yet exhausted. The first exercise in engaging the hero archetype is purposeful challenge. Choose a task or commitment that stretches your capacity, that demands integrity and courage. As you navigate it, notice the internal narratives, fear, doubt, exhilaration, and trace them to their origins. The hero is never complete. It emerges fully only when you are tested, when risk becomes conscious, and when the journey becomes more than comfort. The outlaw is the archetype of rebellion, liberation, and transformation through disruption. You sense it in the impulse to break free from rules, expectations, and habitual thinking. It thrives where conformity oppresses, where rigidity suffocates the living pulse of your psyche. The outlaw's shadow manifests in recklessness, cruelty. The outlaw teaches that freedom is inseparable from responsibility. To meet it consciously, you must distinguish between disruptive energy that liberates tempered by and that which annihilates. The explorer archetype, the second exercise, is conscious defiance. Identify a domain of life novelty, where habitual obedience and self-expand vitality. You feel it as restlessness, change, curiosity, and a thirst. This is not mere rebellion for its own sake. The explorer calls, but a reclamation of autonomy and authenticity. When routines numb, when notice the tension for uncharted experience, fear, exhilaration appears as aimlessness, exhilaration, avoidance, or wandering without purpose. The third exercise is intentional exploration. Step into a new experience, physically or mentally, that challenges your assumptions and expands perception. Travel, study, creative experimentation, or inner exploration through meditation and active imagination serve as conduits. Observe the emotional and cognitive responses that arise: excitement, anxiety, or confusion, and integrate them as messages from the psyche. The explorer reminds you that growth requires movement, engagement, and a willingness to encounter the unfamiliar together. The hero, outlaw, and explorer form a triad of action archetypes, each illuminating aspects of courage, autonomy, and self. They are engaged when life presents unavoidable conflict, ethical dilemmas, or existential questioning. They manifest not only in heroic deeds or literal adventure, but also in subtle ways: the courage to speak your truth, the defiance to reject societal pressure, the curiosity to question assumptions and explore new perspectives. The exercises of challenge, defiance, and exploration allow you to consciously channel these forces, transforming instinctive impulses into deliberate, meaningful engagement. These archetypes are deeply intertwined with the shadow and persona explored in Chapter 1. The hero may mask fear with bravado. The outlaw may hide pain beneath defiance. The explorer may avoid intimacy under the guise of adventure. Recognition and integration of these shadows enhance the archetype's constructive influence. By observing these patterns, naming the impulses, and consciously channeling their energy, you step into a life guided by awareness rather than reaction. Each archetype offers a map, a template for conscious engagement, a story that your psyche longs to enact. Dreams and fantasies provide a powerful medium for encountering these archetypes. The hero may appear as a warrior, a leader, or even a struggling figure striving against insurmountable odds. The outlaw emerges as a fugitive, a rebel, or a disruptor of order. The explorer manifests as a traveler, a seeker, or a wanderer across unknown landscapes. Engage with these symbols through journaling or active imagination. Ask, what is this figure asking of me? What challenge, rebellion, or discovery am I avoiding? Let images and emotions surface without judgment. Notice patterns, themes, and recurring motifs. Here, unconscious guidance merges with conscious choice, illuminating paths for action and insight. Relationships also reveal these archetypes. You may be drawn to mentors, partners, or companions who embody heroic courage, outlaw defiance, or exploratory curiosity. Their presence can challenge your assumptions, illuminate shadows, and catalyze growth. Alternatively, conflicts with such individuals may reflect unintegrated aspects of these archetypes within yourself. The exercise here is relational reflection. Observe interactions through the lens of archetypal dynamics. Ask, which archetypal energy is emerging in me, and how does it interact with others' energies? Conscious awareness transforms tension into insight, conflict into learning, and interaction into integration. Ultimately, engaging these archetypes requires both daring and reflection. You must step into challenges without annihilating caution, rebel without destruction, explore without avoidance. This delicate balance is the alchemy of psychological maturity. The hero, outlaw, and explorer are not merely roles you enact. They are living currents within your psyche, offering power, vitality, and wisdom when consciously engaged, and confusion, frustration, or self-sabotage when ignored or denied. The conscious work lies in recognition, integration, and deliberate action. Each exercise purposeful challenge, conscious defiance. Intentional exploration becomes a bridge between unconscious potential and realized selfhood. As Chapter 2 closes, the tension lingers. You feel the pulse of courage, defiance, and curiosity within, yet also the shadow of hubris, recklessness, and aimlessness that must be acknowledged and integrated. Life will test these archetypes continuously, presenting new challenges, relationships, and circumstances that mirror their influence. The journey is iterative. You step forward, confront the unknown, return with insight, and engage again. The horizon expands, and the question arises: how will you wield these archetypal forces? How will you navigate the treacherous and luminous landscape of action, risk, and discovery? The next chapter awaits, where desire, devotion, and play illuminate deeper layers of the psyche, and where the heart's archetypes beckon with both gifts and shadows. Chapter 3 begins in the quiet spaces of the heart, in moments when life feels tender, intimate, and profoundly alive. You may not always notice it, but these archetypes pulse beneath daily existence, shaping the ways you give, receive, and experience connection. The caregiver, the lover, and the jester are not merely roles. They are forces that illuminate the emotional and relational dimensions of psyche, guiding you toward compassion, intimacy, and joy. They demand authenticity, presence, and vulnerability, qualities that often feel risky, frightening, yet infinitely rewarding. The caregiver emerges first, a figure of nurturing, protection, and responsibility. You encounter this archetype in acts of service, compassion, and empathy when you comfort a friend, support a family member, or sacrifice comfort for another's well-being. The caregiver carries immense strength, yet its shadow is potent: overextension, codependence, and loss of self. To engage the caregiver consciously, you must first recognize limits. Awareness of boundaries transforms service from self-sacrifice into empowerment. The exercise here is simple yet profound. Observe the areas in your life where you naturally extend care, and reflect on whether these actions are chosen from love or compulsion. Where the latter appears, gently reclaim your energy while honoring your capacity to nurture. The caregiver teaches that devotion is not only an expression of love, but a conduit for integration, connecting the self, the shadow, and the world in harmony. Next comes the lover, archetype of intimacy, passion, and desire. It manifests in the pull toward connection, creativity, and aesthetic experience, but also in longing, attachment, and obsession. The lover's shadow is envy, possessiveness, or dissolution of self in another. Conscious engagement requires embodied awareness, noticing the intensity of desire without being consumed by it, recognizing beauty without clinging, embracing intimacy without surrendering autonomy. Ask yourself, what do I seek in others or an experience that I have denied myself? By answering honestly, you unlock not only erotic or emotional potential, but the capacity to inhabit life fully, with richness, depth, and aliveness. The lover reminds you that desire, in its conscious form, is a bridge between human experience and archetypal energy, a channel through which the self speaks. The jester, the archetype of play, humor, and levity, completes this triad. Often underestimated, the jester is essential for integration and perspective. Laughter, improvisation, and delight are its gifts. Avoidance, distraction, and cynicism its shadow. Conscious engagement calls for playful experimentation. Allow yourself to be spontaneous, to laugh without reason, to take life lightly without negating responsibility. Observe where rigidity dominates your interactions or where seriousness constricts spontaneity. The jester teaches that joy is not frivolity, but a profound expression of the psyche's vitality, a reminder that life is both sacred and impermanent, tension-filled and fleeting, and that embracing paradox is essential for wholeness. Together, these archetypes illuminate relational and emotional intelligence, offering guidance for navigating intimacy, attachment, and self-expression. They are activated not only in literal relationships, but in your interactions with ideas, creativity, and inner life. The caregiver nurtures your own potential and the world around you. The lover calls you to authenticity and depth in passion. The jester invites you to surrender rigidity and embrace the unpredictable flow of experience. Exercises in awareness, boundary recognition, embodiment, and play allow these archetypes to emerge consciously, reducing shadowed reactivity and enhancing the richness of daily life, dreams. 2. Reveal these archetypes with clarity. The caregiver may appear as a healer, mentor, or protector. The lover as a passionate figure, an intimate guide, or a symbolic embodiment of desire. The jester as trickster, playful child, or irreverent provocateur. Engage these figures with curiosity. Ask what they seek, what lessons they carry, what shadow patterns they reveal. Journaling, reflection, and active imagination transform these encounters into conscious wisdom, allowing instinctive emotional patterns to become channels of insight and growth. Relationships act as mirrors, amplifying the lessons of these archetypes. You may be drawn to those who embody complementary forces, or repel those whose shadows mirror your own unintegrated energies. Observe interactions consciously. Where does care become enmeshment? Where does desire become obsession? Where does humor deflect responsibility? Reflection transforms challenge into insight, tension into dialogue, and ordinary moments into archetypal encounters. In this process, the caregiver, lover, and jester do not merely appear in isolation. They interact, overlap, and co-inform your life, revealing complexity, depth, and interconnection. Ultimately, the heart archetypes demand balance, awareness, and courage. They teach that vulnerability is strength, that joy is a spiritual act, that desire and care can coexist with autonomy and discernment. Their shadows warn against excess, yet their gifts illuminate the path toward authentic emotional expression. As Chapter 3 closes, you sense the subtle resonance of these forces within yourself. The pull to nurture, the ache to love fully, the spark of irreverent play, and you recognize that mastery does not erase imperfection, but transforms it. You stand on the threshold of wisdom, creativity, and authority, ready to meet the archetypes that govern mind, insight, and transformation. The next chapter awaits, where intellect, vision, and power emerge. The sage, the magician, and the ruler, forces that challenge you to integrate knowledge, transformation, and responsibility. The tension lingers. How will you wield the gifts of the heart without losing your autonomy? How will desire, devotion, and play become conscious allies rather than hidden masters? Chapter 4 begins in the stillness of thought, in the spaces between moments, when the mind whispers questions too profound for ordinary conversation. What is truth? How can knowledge serve life, not merely feed pride? How can power be exercised without corruption, and transformation without fear? Here dwell the archetypes of intellect, insight, and responsibility, the sage, the magician, and the ruler forces that challenge you to expand perception, wield influence consciously, and navigate the delicate alchemy of transformation. They are luminous yet demanding, offering clarity, wisdom, and authority, yet revealing shadowed forms in rigidity, manipulation, and control. The sage emerges first, a figure of contemplation, insight, and the pursuit of truth. You feel the sage in moments of reflection, study, and deep curiosity, in the quiet attention to ideas, symbols, and patterns that shape life and psyche. The shadow of the sage is arrogance, detachment, and intellectualization divorced from feeling. To engage consciously, the exercise is reflective inquiry. Cultivate deliberate observation of your thoughts, beliefs, and patterns, and ask not only what is true, but what serves the whole of life. Journaling, study, and contemplative dialogue become tools of integration. The sage teaches that wisdom is not accumulation, but discernment, not ego triumph, but alignment with the flow of consciousness. It asks you to stand humbly at the edge of the known, recognizing what is revealed and what remains mysterious. The magician archetype follows, a force of transformation, insight, and alchemy. It appears in moments when inner awareness catalyzes change, when subtle understanding translates into meaningful action, when the unseen shapes the scene. Its shadow manifests as manipulation, deceit, or obsession with control. Conscious engagement with the magician requires intentional transformation. Identify habitual patterns you wish to change, whether in thought, behavior, or relationship. And experiment with symbolic, psychological, or practical methods to shift them. Visualization, ritual, active imagination, and creative experimentation are potent tools. The magician reveals the principle that consciousness shapes reality, that knowledge without application is inert, and that the psyche's deeper currents can be harnessed for growth, healing, and creation. The ruler archetype embodies authority, structure, and stewardship. It surfaces in the responsibilities you hold over yourself, your environment, or others. Its shadow is tyranny, rigidity, and the misuse of power. To engage the ruler consciously, cultivate ethical leadership, observe areas of life where authority is required, personal boundaries, professional roles, familial responsibilities, and exercise them with integrity, fairness, and awareness of consequences. The ruler teaches that true power is servant leadership, that influence is sacred, and that responsibility is inseparable from freedom. Mastery of this archetype is not domination, but alignment with principles that serve the collective and honor the self. Dreams, fantasies, and symbolic imagery revealed the sage, magician, and ruler with clarity. The sage may appear as a wise elder, a guide, or a silent observer, offering insight that transcends circumstance. The magician emerges as an alchemist, a sorcerer, or a transformative figure, catalyzing inner and outer change. The ruler manifests as king, queen, or leader, embodying authority, vision, and stewardship. Engage these figures actively. Dialogue, record, reflect, and integrate. Ask, what knowledge do I resist? What transformation do I avoid? How do I wield power consciously? Each archetype presents a challenge and a gift, urging balance between insight and action, vision and humility, authority and service in life. These archetypes often manifest in cycles of learning and application. You may feel sage energy when absorbing information, magician energy when experimenting or creating, and ruler energy when taking responsibility for outcomes. Shadows emerge when these forces dominate unconsciously. Detachment becomes isolation. Alchemy becomes manipulation. Authority becomes tyranny. Conscious recognition, reflection, and deliberate practice transform shadowed expression into empowered, authentic engagement. Exercises in reflection, intentional transformation, and ethical leadership cultivate mastery over these archetypes, enabling you to navigate life with depth, clarity, and integrity. The interplay of heart and mind archetypes becomes evident. The sage requires the insight of the lover and caregiver to avoid cold detachment. The magician benefits from the jester's playfulness to prevent rigid control. The ruler draws from the hero and explorer to exercise authority with courage and vision. Integration across these domains, mind, heart, and action, deepens awareness, balances energy, and aligns behavior with conscious purpose. The archetypes are not isolated. They interact, overlap, and co-inform one another, creating a dynamic, living architecture of psyche. As Chapter 4 closes, you sense both empowerment and challenge. Insight, transformation, and authority pulse within, yet shadows of arrogance, manipulation, and rigidity demand recognition. Life will test these archetypes continuously, presenting dilemmas, opportunities, and mirrors of unconscious patterns. The journey is iterative. Reflection informs action, experimentation informs insight, responsibility informs freedom. The next chapter beckons, where creativity, innocence, and human connection illuminate the path toward wholeness. And the question arises, how will you integrate wisdom, transformation, and power into the living pattern of your being? Chapter V begins in the quiet spaces of potential, in moments when you feel the pull to create, to connect, to belong. Here dwell the archetypes that complete the cycle of psyche, the creator, the innocent, and the everyman. They are not merely symbolic. They are living currents within you, inviting expression, simplicity, and grounded presence. They demand that you inhabit life fully, yet lightly, that you recognize both your unique voice and your shared humanity. These archetypes are subtle but profound, shaping your capacity for creativity, authenticity, and belonging. The creator archetype emerges in the impulse to build, innovate, and bring something new into existence. It manifests in art, music, writing, problem-solving, or any act of conscious imagination. Its shadow appears as perfectionism, obsession, or stagnation through fear of failure. To engage consciously, the exercise is deliberate creation. Allow yourself to bring forth ideas, works, or gestures without immediate concern for judgment or outcome. Notice internal resistance, the fear of inadequacy, the impulse to control, the critical inner voice, and welcome it as material for reflection, not as a barrier. The creator teaches that authentic expression is both liberation and integration. That imagination is a bridge between the unconscious and the tangible world, and that the act of creating is a form of dialogue with the self. The innocent archetype embodies simplicity, trust, and openness. It calls you to experience life with wonder, to approach others without cynicism, and to recognize the sacred in ordinary moments. Its shadow is naivety, passivity, or avoidance of responsibility. Conscious engagement requires presence and receptivity. Attend to small joys, cultivate gratitude, and allow vulnerability without fear. Ask yourself, where have I hardened against life, and how can I soften without surrendering agency? The innocent restores balance, reminding you that wisdom does not negate wonder, that maturity need not extinguish curiosity, and that the psyche thrives when lightness and depth coexist. The everyman archetype, finally, grounds you in shared humanity. It emerges in empathy, solidarity, and relational authenticity. Its shadow is conformity, self-neglect, or fear of standing out. Conscious engagement calls for relational integration. Connect genuinely with others. Honor your commonality without sacrificing individuality, and recognize that belonging is both a right and a practice. The everyman teaches that integration is not isolation. Wholeness arises in dialogue, mutual recognition, and humble presence within the larger web of life. Together, these archetypes illuminate the path to wholeness. The creator channels imagination into manifestation. The innocent opens the heart to wonder, and the everyman grounds consciousness in shared experience. They complete the 12 archetype architecture by balancing action, heart, mind, and community. Exercises in creativity, presence, and relational awareness transform unconscious impulses into conscious participation in life's unfolding, reducing shadows of perfectionism, naivety, or conformity, and enhancing authentic expression, joy, and belonging. Dreams and symbolic imagination reveal these archetypes vividly. The creator appears as an artisan, architect, or innovator, the innocent as a child, a pure-hearted figure, or an unspoiled witness to life's beauty, the everyman as a companion, neighbor, or figure reflecting ordinary humanity. Engage these symbols, journal, visualize, or dialogue with them in active imagination. Ask, what do they invite me to create, trust, or embrace? What shadows must I acknowledge to inhabit them fully? The answers become a mirror of integration, illuminating the threads that weave the totality of your psyche into a coherent, living whole. Relationships, too, act as crucibles for these archetypes. The creator inspires collaboration and innovation. The innocent fosters trust and openness, and the everyman strengthens empathy and belonging. Shadows emerge when these archetypes are ignored or suppressed. Creation is blocked, wonder is stifled, and connection is shallow. Awareness, reflection, and conscious practice transform these energies into living guides. They teach that wholeness is iterative, relational, and dynamic, arising not from perfection but from active engagement with all facets of self and life. As Chapter 5 closes, you sense completion and beginning simultaneously. The 12 archetypes pulse within you, each offering gifts and shadows, each guiding choices, relationships, and experiences. Integration does not demand perfection, but conscious engagement, reflection, and courage. You are no longer merely enacting roles unconsciously. You are aware of the patterns shaping your life, empowered to navigate them with intent. The journey is ongoing, yet a luminous thread of coherence emerges, connecting mind, heart, action, creativity, and belonging. And the question lingers: which archetype is leading your life now? And how will you integrate the gifts of all 12 into the living pattern of your being? The journey through the 12 archetypes is a descent and ascent into the depths of your own psyche. Each archetype, hero, outlaw, explorer, caregiver, lover, jester, sage, magician, ruler, creator, innocent, every man, is both guide and mirror, illuminating paths of strength and shadowed resistance. You have explored courage, rebellion, curiosity, care, passion, play, insight, transformation, authority, creativity, wonder, and connection. You have witnessed the tension between persona and shadow, between desire and restraint, between autonomy and belonging, and in doing so, you have glimpsed the architecture of your own wholeness. This journey is not linear. Some archetypes dominate at times, others lie dormant, awaiting recognition. Shadows emerge when unconscious patterns take control, whispering in fears, compulsions, and projections. Integration is the conscious act of naming, acknowledging, and channeling these energies, transforming instinct into awareness, reaction into choice, fragmentation into coherence. Each archetype teaches a lesson about life, selfhood, and the interplay between the individual and the collective, the personal and the archetypal. Ultimately, the question is not merely which archetype are you, but how do you live consciously among them? Awareness transforms influence into guidance, chaos into insight, impulses into purposeful action. The archetypes are not constraints, but invitations to courage, compassion, creativity, play, wisdom, and connection. To meet them is to meet yourself fully, without denial or illusion, and to step into life as a conscious participant in its unfolding drama. The dance of archetypes continues, and you move through it moment by moment, choice by choice, toward wholeness. And now, as you reflect on these forces within, feel their pulse beneath your consciousness. Let the hero, the lover, the sage, and the creator guide you. Let the shadow inform without dominating. Let the jester remind you to play. Let the everyman ground you in shared humanity. And in this ongoing, sacred dialogue between self and archetype, allow life to reveal its depth, mystery, and transformative potential. You are not merely living. You are becoming, in every moment, the conscious embodiment of your own unfolding psyche.